Good afternoon. This is um, another segment speaking of the business of gemstones, diamonds, jewelry. Basically, a very from the beginning of a very humble business started 45 years ago with myself and my wife um, with a company called China West here in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Uh, After 45 years, we have taken this group from the husband and wife team or the mama papa store into the global market, from retail to wholesale, and to heading back into Brazil, where I grew up, where I'm very familiar with the country and history. As I have gone to school for my teenagers, the junior high school, and then eventually I came to college. I'm opening this now as a monologue by what I'm speaking, but I'm inviting to all the participants who are willing to run, to test, and to build their own business at this stage from the from the from the perspective in the global environment. We're talking about AI. We are talking about the quantum computing. And basically, this will be the first era that a total exchange for all human valuables that can start it. It is very exciting. Um, our group have spent over 35 years, and the demarcation marks in 1991. That was almost 14 years since we starting our business known as China West here in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. But we are offices and the coordinated services from stone mining in Brazil to the gem cutting started in Sri Lanka, partial in North Korea, and then eventually we have gone into Thailand in the area between the Thai and Burma border because of the labor supply, and also taken over a formerly German gemstone cutting facilities in the city called Mesai by the Chiang Mai, northwest of Thailand. And from that point, um, as always, we have always moved logistically all the export of the gemstones in rough, in mineral, and even cuts first to Hong Kong, and using Hong Kong as the free port logistically to forward the rest of the stone to all the Asian countries, as I have stated, in the use of contacts and friends and supports. A learning curve. Some were good, some were not so good, with Japan, Korea, Sri Lanka, Thailand. Eventually, as I have anticipated, um, the entire business insofar with processing from gemstone cutting, lapidary, gemstone carving, which is in a way for some people do not understand the industry, where I using the extra of my leftovers of the gem cutting. Nothing will go to waste, from tumbling stones to create pictures, carvings in the use of agates. So our long standing in Hong Kong, very humble, very modest, but because of the languages, where I had my the communication skills in Portuguese, Spanish, uh, workable Italian, Chinese, and English, of course. And that is how we have started in a very humble and modest capital. 1977. 2 years after I had received my master's degree, worked as a university psychological counselor for 2 years. We have decided not wanting to play with the bureaucracy and the system and the game people play and that sort of things. We have decided to move on and to develop our gemstone business. In a little bit of a related story, I want to add this to it, maybe add to the flavor to this presentation. Is almost like for most of the Chinese who are familiar with the story of the Monkey King, a little bit of the leap of faith. When the monkey got to the region called the mountain, called Faguoshan, the mountain of flowers and fruits, hanging around with a group of monkeys, how he became the leader. Because where he had intuitively spotted right behind the waterfall, there could be a tremendous amount of a spot, almost like all abundance, fruits and flowers, all the supplies that most of the monkeys were vegetarians. And by him jumping into the waterfall, landed behind the fall, there was this new world. Believe it or not, the Monkey King story is always known to all of us ever since we were children. When we're naughty, we're comparing us as the naughty monkey, rambunctious, always disobeying, always mischievous. So in the Chinese psychological mindset and the psyche, I became the monkey. As a matter of fact, here in the Facebook, I do have one page, one platform. I, the monkey, I, comma, the Malao. So 77, we had barely $3,000 between my wife and myself. We have decided to open the business in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Why we have the store open, Kathy was still traveling as an admission counselor for the University of Wisconsin at Platteville. Got her master's degree from Marquette. When I finished my degree from UW Platteville, we have always studied and thinking about the stone business. My fluency in Portuguese and my love for Brazil and my curiosity, the Brazilian culture and the minority culture has started when I was 16 years old. When I finished my junior high school with the Salesians from Italy, from Torino, the John Bosco, the Salesians order. And I will repeat often in my life story and my linkage to this Roman Catholic religious order. Very educational. In fact, one of my role models about education is the founder, St. John Bosco from Turin or Torino, Italy. I attended school in Macau from around 56 to 62. And eventually, when we got to Brazil in 62, I have attended my last 3 years of junior high school with the same order. At 16, I have tried to join the order, not out of any religious sense, but the very curious of the missions of the Salesians in and around Brazil at that time, mostly in the western part of Brazil, in the state called Mato Grosso, and with the native tribes, even today, very successful on the mission insofar they're preserving and helping the native Brazilians and keep their identity, keep their culture, and those were the Chavantes. Good. I'm going back to the story then. Well, we have chosen Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, which is 80 miles north of Chicago. In that particular time and point, even though we have plunged into a business with a certain degree of confidence in my command of the Chinese language, including Cantonese, and also in view of the time when the trade had just opened up with China, um, in my own mindset to conjugate, and why do I come up with the name China West? Well, this is very simple. My sister Ivy, who's married to her husband Tom Yan, and the Tom Yan's family had the store in Vancouver named China West. And I keep thinking it makes sense. Maybe creating a newly Chinese presence in the West or in the world, in the western part of the world. And also by my linkage to China was a very, very, very helpful with the supply coming in from China and with our focus mainly about the stone carvings, again, the jade carving, the nephrite carving, and the other softer stone, the nephrite, not really jadeite, and also the soapstones. And it was at the time that we do have quite a bit of the Chinese merchandising, but the theme, we keep shaping the merchandise into the colored gemstones in the jewelry business. Our store had no bigger than 750 square feet. And from the first 2.5 years, as we have noticed, 80% of our sales coming out from one long, not big, a jewelry case. And 80% of the transactions and sales were involving jewelry in the 14 karat gold. That's the jewelry we started with. Also, economically, I think this will be interest to the listening party that in 1977, our gold cost per ounce was just about $48 to $56 per ounce. And be mindful, after 45 years, as a thinking man, as an educated person, we have to remember, and that is when Kissinger and Nixon got involved into petrodollar, and when the U.S. no longer will hold gold as the standard for the U.S. dollar. And at that time in point, I think 73, gold is only $35 an ounce. So we started a few years later, but with that mindset, the cost of gold in that value, will we have easy access to all the catalogs, shipping, ordering, manufacturing, all by the Chicago city center, the 5 North Wabash, or the 5 South Wabash. As a matter of fact, we have held an office for several years where we have used the office to manufacturing what we need domestically. And in the meantime, we have also transacted a lot of our stones by way of the Chicago office. But eventually there was running out of use, and with our shipping mechanism and our use, the American United States Post Office, where the insurance can hold up to $40,000 per shipment. And then this is how the business of the retail in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, had starting to emerge into a wider arena. We literally, starting from the retail, as we migrated gradually into the wholesale distribution. I don't recall exactly when do we start, but by us getting acquainted with the business operation, and by the hearsay and by all the other the more friends we have acquired in the business, from the retail to the wholesale, and traveling with a backpack. I go back and forth to Brazil, and coming back, distributing it first by traveling in the Midwest, driving in the 4-state area. We started here in Wisconsin, then we covered Illinois, we covered Iowa, and also Minnesota, where the interest of the color stones has started to emerge. And then with our stone portfolio, arranged from the color from the deepest purple, which is the amethyst in the quartz family, to the next scales, the known aquamarine, which means the ocean watercolor, and to the richest and the widest range of color stone called tourmaline. And this is where I travel back and forth from Chicago. I have to connect my flight from Chicago to New York. And in those days, the direct flight from New York to Sao Paulo or Rio is by the Brazilian airline called Varig. So that makes me my frequency of travel. And by all the coordinated thinking, logistics, security, insurance, and the gamble, I started with $3,000 cash, flying to Brazil, leveraging on the credit card for the travel, for the ticket, and the rest of the expenditure, which is not much. From Sao Paulo, when I landed, I go directly from the airport to the bus station, where from the bus station, going up northeast, to the two major Brazilian jam centers, with the two cities named Governador Valadares, and then the 120 kilometers further northeast is called Teofilo Otoni. Those two towns got me started as the gem center of almost all Brazil. The traveling to and from Brazil from New York is 9 hours. Added another 3 hours from Chicago. And this is how I started with gemstones that I paid at that particular time point, a range of color, which I have classified the 5 lowest color in the color stone spectrum, and under the semi-precious, which is amethyst quartz, citrine, which is yellow, also happen to be a heated amethyst. When the color is not even in the crystal, we can heat it, burn it, and the striation of the bending of the amethyst often open up to a yellow that covering up the other transparent area. So the two stones are quartz, amethyst, and citrine. Along with that, we have the garnet. It's a funny thing. In the Brazilian and Portuguese language, we call granite granada, like Spanish, but nada means nothing. Well, basically, the garnet never had taken any luster in my tray. But take it back, only a few years later, 10 years later, some of the most gorgeous garnet coming out of Africa were incredible. The rhodolite garnet, it looks almost like reddish, purplish tourmalines. And also not to overlook another green garnet coming out of Africa from Savor National Park called the Zavarite. And those stones were commanding a very, very high price and substantial high price, where we have also worked on this sort of garnets. But in general, that covers the 3 color amethyst, citrine, garnet, and also another inexpensive stone, and never come in big sizes, is called the peridot. Peridot is in the olivine family, and at that particular time and point in the 70s, a lot of the peridot is coming out of the region of the state of Arizona, or by the reservations uh, along the area where the Apaches were. Well, we do have a lot of business engaged with this particular group and their associates from Germany that had eventually brought us into another low cost but high demand a color manufactured by irradiation in the use of the white topaz, first starting from Brazil, with the size and the volume just as big, if not huge, like amethyst. So, in what I am classifying to even lower to the cost of the stones in the range of $1 US, with exception of the olivine peridot, greenish yellow, I have very, very solid and good command in the operation of the 3 to 4 lowest color stones. Now, going to color. First, we have the amethyst, and then we have the heated citrine, yellowish citrine, which is the same stone of the amethyst. Then come the white topaz, and from the heating the white topaz by 3 sets of irradiation. First, we have the cobalt from Brazil, a treatment usually just to sanitize the utensils of the operation tools for the medical doctors. It's a cobalt use of the treatment. Then next come the linear accelerator, where at that point I was using the service coming out of San Diego in one of the labs. And the last phase and the linear acceleration to treating the blue topaz come out to be a very pleasant sky blue, not exactly like aquamarine, but is very much a poor man's aquamarine. And the last color by a combination of treatments, because there's some of the stones not taking color from the cobalt, or not taking color in the process called linear accelerator, and then all of them can go to the last process, the nuclear reactor, and which they will all take color. But the irradiation will take a longer process, and it was for a while a little bit controversy because the residues and the time in releasing from the many labs. But all in all, I make this stone classification, out of which I have sold white topaz to the Asians, to the Koreans, to the other gem cutters in Thailand, which they have their access to back to the U.S. for irradiation and for treatment. And eventually, I have developed also the option to have those treated in the University of Missouri in Columbia, which eventually turned out to be a little bit of a controversy at the time releasing, and the factor of dishonesty to how fast you release the stones and giving to different distributors, being bribed, being paid. And that's the old story. But I myself have developed with my then partner in Germany, near Ida Oberstein, and then we have a treatment plan called Buxol. So in the last 10, 15 years, from 77 until 83, based on my own personal carefulness, or even being studious, and study the economics of these 5 lower colors of stones. Of course, I dabble into all stones when I have the access or when the time or the money freed up for my main menu of the amethyst. I will buy tourmalines, I will buy aquamarine, I will buy many of the beautiful emeralds from Brazil, alexandrites, andalusites, you name it, queensite. The color stone, the color spectrum, and the size and shape and whatnot have always attracted me. But you have to be practical. You have to know where your money, when you make the best purchase, not by my command, but by two variables. People always ask the simple question, what is the best buy, Paul? I said, no, very simple. The best buy is when I'm going down, before I go down to Brazil, I have a request. What size stone, what color they would like, what price they would pay. I know exactly what I can buy. I know exactly how much I can make. Yes, as a rule of thumb, doubling the earning is not difficult. But to buy the right product, the right size, and to have items that are suitable for the buyers here in the Midwest, in New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, and eventually my client base in Japan, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Thailand, Sri Lanka, South Korea, so on and so forth. If they give me a menu of what they want, and then I can provide what they need, at least 60 to 80% on every trip of my heading down to Brazil, it is the best trip ever. Because basically you're buying within the frame of mind of this demand before I even reach Brazil. Now remember, that was at a time, or until 1991, there's no other communication, extremely expensive by phone call. When emergency phone call comes up to call my family, on average phone calls between $200 to $300. I remember this very clearly because there's almost half the ticket price going down from New York to Sao Paulo, right around 800, 700, 1,000, 1,200. In this particular comment that I am sharing with you is that the humble beginning and very modest $3,000 dying to purchasing gemstones while leveraging the entire expenditure by still my college days using a credit card for lodging, for taxi rides, for whatsoever. But I had to buy the $3,000 worth of stones and coming back, and 10 days or 2 weeks at the most, 30 days later, I managed to have double that money from $3,000 to $6,000 to $7,000. And incrementally, that is how the process of our business started. The retail holding the fort, paying all expenses, and the wholesale is where the growth rate has started. To starting at $3,000 a month purchase, often I fly right back 3 weeks later. And then doubling that amount of money on my hand from $7,000, $10,000, and keep doubling every time. But I set a limit to my total exposure at $30,000. In the meantime, I'm building my knowledge, traveling at my own expenses, just to know the supply sources of amethyst, whereas the most constant supply to the global amethyst by way of the ethnic Germans in Minas Gerais, the state I'm in, repeating again the two towns of Teofilotoni, Valadares, with my own office established in the city of Governador Valadares. But I've taken time heading back to Sao Paulo for the 24-hour ride bus. And from Sao Paulo, I go further down to the southern part of Brazil, just to know the cities and the towns where they process the amethyst influenced, trained by the Germans. In this part, southern part of Brazil, is very interesting, but the terrain by the landscape is very similar to the area like we're here in Wisconsin with the with the lake on the east and then with the Mississippi on the west. In the between, we have the valleys or some part of the Wisconsin. After all my travel, is similar to almost Bavaria in Germany, and where I have spent my time investing my time to learn about the steady supply sources to the world at that time were the Germans. I have studied and lived in this state of Wisconsin. And what I have always admired in my lifetime, the discipline of the Germans and how they have structured the system of in a very quiet demeanor, the global distribution of the amethyst stones. The gemstones produced in Rio Grande do Sul, in the region called Iraí, or in between the two states in Santa Catarina and also by Rio Grande do Sul, and next to it, further south, I have also learned the supply of one of the best amethyst, color-wise, never in big sizes, but where the German had always reference of the stones, the top color of amethyst, to be called the Siberian. When you learn about the processing, how to extract, what is a system from the mining field to the city, to Lajeado, Soledade, also the two city, also very well known for the largest supply of the Brazilian agates. And if you ask me, Paul, given the choice of all color stones, and I will tell you, I have a lot more love for agates than all the other color stones. This is very funny. The agates you can buy pennies for the kilo in rough and in other forms. And Chinese have always valued, by reading Chinese novels, Chinese martial art books when I left China 13, 14, and the agate referencing by Chinese is called the horse brain or manao. So just on the cultural sphere, I was using this term in all my platforms, as you shall see from my Pauyi.ai. The cultural sphere in this region of the southern part of Brazil, which we call them gaúcho, it's like the southern cowboys, the heavy on meat. They have the best churrasco. We have the best influence by Italian, the polenta, for those who like the cornbread, the meal. So the regional culture, their accents, their way of expression, and I love the mate, the tea. And this has always been part of the enculturation, learning from them cross-culturally, interpersonally. And from this kind of cultural exchange learning, you become a better person engage with the local people. And oftentimes, by a minor body movement, you can read by what I'm asking for the price, especially during the bargain time, what percentage point I will get what I wish for. Sometimes a $20,000 package of stones, I counter offer to 12 to 10, sometimes, it's a gamble. Maybe because of my training in psychology and counseling, which I have spoken on the other tapes. But without malice, you're just trying to get your best price, because that will give you the best margin. And one have no control of your life. You have no control when will be the next time you come down and make the purchase, or you come down the next time with the money, the goods may not be available. Somebody had came ahead. There are more buyers in town. There are more buyers coming from Japan, a couple buses, tourists from Germany, from Europe, from France, from the US, Canada. So in this 45 years, the art of purchasing, buying in Brazil, it most obviously the fluency of the language have always helped in the way I negotiate, but all in all is the endearment of the people. Do not look upon them to be hostile or to be like enemy, because every good supplier, every relationship that you build, you will get the return tenfold. When they open up, they will tell you, well, maybe this trip may not have the goods for you. Perhaps you can come another time. Or they know somebody else that have the sort of goods I was looking for. And I think this interpersonal communication, like I said before, I am totally fond of Brazil. If God had given me my life, I use it in the religious terms, and then Brazilians had given me my heart. And with this ideas, endearing the people, engage with the people, and sometimes business is tough. I have dear friends who love to sell to me, but it just so happens somebody come in an hour before me, took away those few stones that I had my plan to buy. So it becomes spontaneous. You see what you like, you think what you like. If you think you really can make gain of that, make a decision. Be decisive. Do not hesitate. Do not wait. Because even when you bought a little bit costlier, amongst all the stones, you can dilute it, the entire parcel or the parcels of gemstones, to bring your average down to sustain your minor mistake. That is just one of the basic fundamentals in my way approaching, not just in Brazil, but in my other trips to Nigeria, my trips to Guatemala with the Antigua, with the jade, and then my eventually full pledge into purchasing and the amplification of my amethyst portfolio with Uruguay in the town is called Artigas. It's 3 hours away from the La Joya de Soledad. I might be off a little bit by the traveling time, but traveling in Brazil, traveling to the mines, sometimes 6, 7 hours away, or even 6 kilometers away, you can drive 3.5 hours. I love the space. I love that solitude, along with my driver, and oftentimes then with my partner in Brazil. We drive off 5, 6 hours away to the mining site, to our own operation, eating mango off the tree. Other times, I have tasted capivaras on the trips. I have witnessed the many crossing of the poisonous snakes, but I'm not in favor have them kill, just got the car to have they said, well, they will hurt the cattle. I have a different idea about animals and about lives, but the whole ambience in the cultural sphere of the gemstone purchasing and the making relationship with every name, every face, what they have supported me. I am absolutely grateful even today, where I have built a business with some losses and much gains. The life is a tip of the balance. But in this 45 years, the gem trade had taught me to understand in my smaller cultural spheres of our own economics, and also how I related to the larger global economics, where this trade had taken me from Lake Geneva, a town with 3,500, to in hours away, New York, London, Germany, Sao Paulo, Brazil, Rio, eventually to Hong Kong, Shanghai, Beijing, Bangkok, Sri Lanka, Singapore, and places where we just met, and eventually many of them flew down to Brazil and flew down for joint ventures or proposed joint ventures. To the millions of carats have gone through my hands with just amethyst, blue topaz, citrine, yellow quartz. From 1977 to 1983, I have already established a very comfortable supply of gemstones and also a very comfortable clientele in most of the North America. And by 83, we have made the entry into Hong Kong, and then from Hong Kong to Thailand, Sri Lanka, Japan, South Korea, just to get to know where the processing stone, the difficulty, the cost, the transport, the importation, the logistic procedures, in knowing in the back of my mind that I will be opening or using my stone to be cut in China. And eventually in 84, 85, that have become reality. And by establishing our cutting site in Guangzhou. In all of this development, with the basic know-how of the country, of the language, of the people, and that part of psychology had given me the entry to secure my purchasing knowledge and have secured my travel arrangement and the in and out of the country logistics with gemstones or with money. And that had given our company a major contribution with these elements. It's the people, it's the culture, it's the language, and then eventually the know-how. The garimpeiros, the gem diggers, the gem miners, these are the foxhounds with a sense of the nose. They can sense, and they can sit up in the hill by some of the cave duck far away, and by the sparkling of the mica, the white mica coming out of the cavern, or kaolin, another white substance, and by the proximity of this holes diggings to the region of the commercial mine products, be it iron ore, manganese, and all the other mine sites. These gem hunters have their know-how, have their awareness, and this is how these sellers of gems, many are garimpeiros, or retired garimpeiros that had ventured into all these sites and holes. Now they come into the city center and to sell their stones or other people's stones. by understanding the collective groups of culture in the trade, by these two cities of Valadares and Tefilotoni, and to know the people from this region, and then the rest of the spheres of some 50 to 100 small towns with the 400 plus variety of goods, moving from stones in quartz, tourmalines, kunzite, andalusite, emerald, and expensive alexandrite, to the rich variety later on. You'll see in the magazines what is a rutilated quartz, the golden rutiles with the titanium inside the crystals, and the red color that were the green. They call the ghost or phantom nomenclature names we were naming new stone coming out, and that will be another video when I'm talking about in linguistic terms how many terminology, how many towns, how many mines were named just by pure accident in a very funny way. That's part of my enjoyment while I'm working in Brazil, with the same sense of discipline, very conscious about the money I have with me, the money in my safe, the dollar I have, and also the influx of the dollar. When do I want to hold dollar? When I want to cash in to the local currency. And the use of the local dollar exchanger. We call them doleiros. And frequently, in my case, for the longest time, for all this 40 years of my traveling, the first thing I can spot and I have is the dollar exchange people, and most often they were ethnic Chinese. And because of this is the total as much as you can be aware, but even with all you know, you can still take a little bit of a suffering or loss, in case in point. My $30,000 on a Sunday in my pocket, by not spending it on the following Monday, can give me 30% gain. This is the dollar influx in the market, in the black market. And that's what I said. Politically correct or incorrect, I told my Brazilian friends, when the dollar goes up, many people say you must be enjoying the gains. On the contrary, because my long-term relationship with Brazil, I feel pain. Because when your currency is not stable, be that in Africa, be that in Brazil, Argentina, anywhere, when there's an existence of a black market value that can have a fluctuate, an influx about 10, 15, 20%, you don't have a country. You become an economy colony of the US dollar. But nevertheless, this is part of the package. Okay. These are the sharp contrasts where I have made my vow to poverty. I also make the vow not to hurt or harm or take advantage of anyone. And how did I survive in 45 years in a market that seems to be totally merciless? The power, the greed, and the desperate situations between the gain and losses. I have seen family fail. I've seen family succeeded. I have seen multi-million dollar ventures gone up, and by their gamble into housing in China, many of these wonderful business entities had collapsed in no less than 6 months to a year. So I have to say, part of my preparation in my other segment, talking about the psychology round and square, where I obtained the cultural anthropological analysis adding to my psychological understanding, are all part of the human cultural anthropology. They never came cheap. They never came cheap. If I have spent in this last 45 years close to $10 million in travel, plus gains and losses here and there, I pay a very expensive um, learning investment to have developed the psychology round and square and now the pedagogy of conscience. And I hope I will start the gem file, um, the first segment in this AI and the quantum computing. And I have every intention to run this gem file system, a system that I feel absolutely comfortable to share with everyone in the industry, as we will be continue to moving forward to have the gem file system to be installed and to carry on in the next couple of years. Thank you for your time and looking forward to the next session, maybe tomorrow. Have a good evening. Pronto, Gustavo? Gostou?